Welcome to the Medovia Menopause Podcast, your trusted source for evidence-based, science-backed information related to menopause. Medovia is dedicated to changing the narrative about menopause by educating, raising awareness, and supporting women in this stage of life, both at home and in the workplace. Visit medovia.com to learn more. I'm one of your hosts, April Haberman, and I'm joined by Kim Hart. We're co-founders of Medovia, certified health coaches, registered yoga teachers, and midlife mamas specializing in menopause. You're listening to another episode of our podcast, where we offer expert guidance for the most transformative stage of life, bringing you real conversations, education, and resources to help you overcome challenges and reach your full potential through midlife. Join us and our special guests each episode as we bring vibrant, fun, and truthful conversation, and let us help you have a deeper understanding of menopause. Hi, everyone. Today we have Carolyn Thayer on the show. Carolyn has over 15 years of experience building strategies, programs, and teams in the mental health and wellness space, including leadership roles in startup through Fortune 50 organizations. Grounded in her background in counseling and health psychology, she brings a unique combination of successes and learnings to integrative mental health and well-being program leadership. It seems really timely to have her on the show, and we're happy to share this episode with you. Carolyn, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you today.
Hi, April. Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a great conversation. I almost said fun conversation. I hope we have fun, but and hopefully we can have fun talking about mental health, right? It's a very serious topic, and it's something that we really have not discussed at length on our show here, mental health and menopause. So we're thrilled to have you here, and I want to dive right in because I know that there are a lot of questions that are out there that our audience has, and there's a lot of content to cover in a short amount of time. So if it's okay with you, I'm going to dive right in.
Great, let's
do it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. I want to start by having you help us understand how hormonal changes during menopause impact mental health and what some of the most common health challenges women face during this time are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to start with just a shared definition or understanding of mental health, right? So mental health, it's a continuum, right? So many times when we talk about mental health, we think of and are talking about mental health conditions or mental illness, but really, thinking of mental health as something that we all have, just like physical health, and that is from, mentally healthy through mental illness. And so I think I just like to kind of lay that foundation.
Yeah.
And for most of us, our mental health ebbs and flows, right, throughout life. And so with that, of course, during menopause, there's our bodies go through many big changes. And with hormones like estrogen and progesterone, as they go up and down, they also affect neurotransmitters in our brain, which are closely tied to our mood and our emotions. So serotonin, for example, this is what helps us be calm and happy, and dopamine is kind of the pleasure part of our brain, and things like focus. And so as hormones go up and down throughout transitions and experiences like menopause, there's that chemical impact on our mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We get a lot of questions about this, especially people that are surprised about, gosh, my anxiety went through the roof, and I'm probably not a very nice person anymore, and I don't know why, and I feel sad and I don't know why. Like, is what's happening in the brain as the hormones change, and what can we do to support ourselves when we recognize, gosh, this is happening to me?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a great just myth to dispel, right? That menopause, yes, it has big physical impacts, but there's also the mental and psychological impacts. And this is because as estrogen and progesterone levels change, they making our serotonin and dopamine levels change as well and drop. And this can lead to mood swings and feelings of anxiety, depression. And that's why women are at increased risk of anxiety and depression during menopause. And this is not, yes, it does, pre-existing conditions of anxiety and depression can worsen, but it's not only people who have had anxiety and depression before, right? So, and in terms of, ways to support, there's a lot, right, at home and at work. I think that a big one is just getting ahead of any shame or silence around menopause and mental health. There's so many parallels between the stigmas that there is around menopause and mental health, and when you're having mental health struggles. And so, how can we create that supportive culture and environment to have that open conversation and psychoeducation about the realities of, the impact on focus, on, brain fog, on our mental well-being, to normalize and educate. And then from there, empower to have some really practical ways to support people in those times.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. Mental health certainly has come a long way. In just the past couple of years, individuals, male, female, wouldn't discuss mental health in the workplace or even with one another, right? It was very much, it carried a lot of stigma and shame. And I feel like menopause is just kind of coming out right now as well. Kim was on a webinar yesterday and someone asked, how do we start to talk about menopause in the workplace because of the shame and the stigma? And if I'm having brain fog, I don't want to be looked at like I have a disease, like I need an accommodation, like I am, right, that person in the workplace. I think it is really important what you brought up, that this is normal and this is a hormonal reaction, what's happening in our bodies, and not something that we can help, right? It's it's not a disease and nothing's wrong with me. I just need a little bit of support. So, that being said, as we think about anxiety and depression, whether it's at home or at the workplace, what are some of those coping mechanisms? How do you mentioned training, awareness. I think that's first and foremost what we need to do everywhere. But what are some of those coping mechanisms? If I'm at work and I'm feeling anxious and I'm feeling depressed, what can I do?
Yeah. I just want to, what you said is so just, we will get to coping mechanisms, but what you said about the mental health has really become more on the forefront. And I think that, oftentimes we talk about there are, life transitions that cause increased levels of stress or anxiety, right? Whether that be positive stressors like, marriage or moving, these things that our mental health is impacted, or negative like grief and loss and job loss, right? And thinking about, but menopause isn't typically in those frameworks of just life transitions, right? So I think that that's really profound and something that could be interesting for, just to kind of anchor into. So in terms of coping strategies, of course there's, always remembering that our mental and our physical health are connected, right? And so thing like focusing on your well-being as an individual. So your sleep, your nutrition, your physical activity, right? Of course, stress management techniques. So things that are always accessible to us, like breathing or, mindfulness, And social is really huge. I think that there's great opportunity to find that space to talk about your experiences in that, whether that be at work, right, in an employee resource group, or, if you have that level of psychological safety with your manager or with coworkers, right, friends, family, whatever that looks like. Just having those open conversations to remember, I'm not alone. I'm not alone in this experience, and I'm not alone in the challenges that come with it.
Right.
And then of course, understand what your employer offers or what's available to you in terms of mental health benefits, right?
Yeah.
So therapy, counseling, EAPs, whatever that looks like, and don't just become aware of them, but take advantage of them.
Absolutely.
Use
I
them.
love that you say that the social aspect is so important, because one of the things when we get into the workplace and start doing training, people are like, oh my gosh, you're hearing me, you're seeing me. I feel like I'm not going crazy. And when other people start talking about it, they feel like, okay, me too, right? You mentioned understand what your company offers and take advantage of therapy. The Menopause Society has said that cognitive behavioral therapy is one of the best ways to help with your menopause symptoms. And I think that makes sense on the surface, but can you talk a little bit about when someone should consider that and why it is helpful?
Yeah. So, I would say that there's no right, or there's no certainly wrong time to seek out therapy, in my opinion, right? Mental health is something that we don't need to be in crisis to benefit from counseling or therapy, right? But there's also, there's group support, there's coaching support, there's a wide array of mental health support, again, across that continuum. But there are some times that are, things to look out for when it is especially important to seek out professional help, whether that be for yourself or if a loved one or a coworker, right? If you're noticing these things in them, to really, show up with compassion and care and encourage them to get, the support that they need. So a lot of it is around just time and intensity, right? And really impact on daily life. So if you're experiencing, persistent changes to your mood, so things like, ongoing like sadness, or even heightened anxiety or panic attacks that are ongoing and affecting your daily functioning, definitely. If you're feeling chronic fatigue or insomnia, of course, there's other things that could be impacting that, but certainly a signal. And also we know that, a lack of sleep impacts our mental health as well. So those two things and then just, if you are having a loss of interest in activities that you typically enjoy, right? If you're maybe not as keen on seeing or connecting with the people that you're closest to, or if you have a hobby and you're not doing that, those are all things to just pay attention to as signals that it might be time to seek out some additional support.
Yeah. I want to come back to something that you said a few minutes ago, where you talked about coping mechanisms and, things that are within our control, that are at our fingertips, like breath work and mindfulness. I think we can often, I say this includes myself, say that, but for those that aren't familiar with breath work or mindfulness or have never practiced it before, I think there's two camps. Some people think it's woo-woo, like that. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
That is woo-woo. Or, all right, how do I breathe? Right. Or what is mindfulness? I'm going to go have to look that up. What does it mean? So I think we can kind of rein it in a little bit. We can talk a little bit about breath work. Why is that important? What type of breath work can I do sitting in my desk at work for a few minutes, or go hide in the bathroom if I need time out? What does it look like? And then what is mindfulness, and how can I practice that too? Just to leave our audience with some practical tools.
Absolutely. I love it. So, mindfulness at its most fundamental level is, fully attuning to the now. So not being bogged down in, the past or preoccupied with the future, but really being fully attuned to the now. And, and without judgment. So without placing kind of a good or bad on something, and also with acceptance, right? So without the desire to change what is. Okay.
Yeah.
And mindfulness, it helps a lot with stress management, emotional regulation, things like self-awareness. There's actually like mindfulness-based stress reduction can really help with physical pain. And the thing about mindfulness in terms of practical tools is it's something that, you don't have to go to a day-long silent mindfulness retreat, right? It's, go outside and one of my favorites is just to go on a walk around the block, leave my phone at my desk. It's uncomfortable, but, and practice, feeling the ground under my feet.
Yeah.
Hearing the birds, hearing the cars. And as my mind inevitably jumps to got to pick up the kid from school, I have to answer this email, right? Just gently bringing it back to the now. There's like mindful eating, maybe there's some Halloween candy on your counter, like for me, and sit there with, an M&M or a piece of chocolate and mindfully eat it. And as we practice mindfulness, the beauty of it and the hope that I find in it is that as we practice it, thanks to neuroplasticity, right, our brain changes to kind of default more to that mindful state. And then breathing is another, it can be a tool for mindfulness, just focusing on your ins and your outs, even just for a minute, and notice just how that kind of regulates and calms your body. So
and noticing whether you're holding your breath, right? I think that's the first.
Yes.
Like if I feel stressed, for me, I'm like, oh, I'm not breathing.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. It's
I'm
even just remembering
breath, right?
to breathe. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that you talk about neuroplasticity as a way that breathing and mindfulness helps calm your brain. But I know the more I meditate, the better I feel, because it's a sort of muscle that you sort of practice. And can you talk a little bit about what it does for your brain with the stress? Because it's hard to just pick up and be present in the moment. So you're present for that moment. What does it do for the rest of your day? What does it do for tomorrow? Like why am I going to invest the time in this when it's just at this particular moment?
Yeah. So, breathing, right, and mindfulness, there are impacts on kind of your experience now, right, in terms of kind of emotional regulation, even things like, self-awareness. So being aware of, where am I feeling emotions in my body, right, can help us just better self-regulate, and better kind of interact in social situations. But neuroplasticity, right, it's like thinking about our brain like a muscle. The more we practice, the stronger it becomes. And so there's actually like structural changes that happen in our brain, in areas related to our stress response, right? And there's some really interesting resources around this. But as those areas of our brain are strengthened, then our stress response becomes, more like, I guess, regulated, right? And it allows us to respond versus react. And so I think that, I could go into that as much as you
could do it
like,
but a couple hours on that.
Yeah.
Sure. No, but I think it's really good because if when you're practicing that and some kind of stress hits, if you can take a breath, remember to take a breath, and your brain can be like, okay, I know how to deal with these things, right? I think
Yes.
that's really great. I want to switch gears and talk about the workplace. How do women advocate for themselves during this time when they're struggling with mental health issues related to menopause, mood swings, brain fog, which was still and will ever be my challenge? What are some of the ways in which women can take care of themselves and advocate for themselves when they're struggling with this kind of mental health challenges around this age?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot that we as women can do to advocate. I would also say, this isn't just a women's issue. It's not also when people are having mental health struggles, it's not just something for them to advocate for, right? And so I think that there's but there's a lot that women can do to advocate when they are having mental health challenges related to menopause, or just mental health challenges in general. I will say that a lot of it does require a foundation of psychological safety, right? And psychological safety being our ability to show up authentically, with vulnerability, without there being risk of a negative consequence. And so that is kind of a really big asterisk to that is a place to start, I guess, when to just make sure that there is an environment where people can advocate for themselves, when they are having mental health challenges. So with that kind of known, and we can talk about ways to foster psychological safety as well. But you can talk to your manager, for example, or HR, if there is that level of trust, right? To explain, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm experiencing, and to really focus on ways that you can be supported in asking for those, right? So I could benefit from maybe coming into working from home a couple days a week, or coming into work a little later, or having a quiet place to be for, when I need it at work. If there is if you're feeling really overwhelmed, expressing that, and maybe there's something in terms of a deadline or something with your work responsibility that can be shifted, right? And just having that conversation. I think, requesting, well, first of all, knowing what mental health resources you have available, and then vocalizing what else you might find is helpful for you and for other people. A really great place to do that can start with, if you have an employee resource group, or kind of a community within work. HR is obviously a great place to have those conversations as well. And then lastly, and it gets back to kind of having that conversation with your manager or HR, but familiarizing yourself, first of all, with whatever policies are in place, using them, and then advocating for what are the gaps? What are the gaps? And then, if you can, maybe being a part of starting, of kind of initiating some of those, right? In your workplace.
Yeah.
Love that.
I love that. I love that you mentioned employees bringing solutions to the table, because I think that's an important piece. Oftentimes, if we don't do that and we come to a manager and say, this is what I'm experiencing, and it falls flat, it's because they don't know what you need, right? Or they don't know what to do, or they don't know how to help. So that, that intrinsic knowledge of self, right? Self-awareness, like this is what I'm experiencing, is really important. And that's work that we have to do for ourselves so that we can advocate for what we need, right? I need to listen to me, what's happening with me. And I think this is what I need. So then we advocate in a safe environment.
Yes.
As you mentioned. Yeah. Yeah.
There's many studies that say that when employers, the reasons why they don't have some of these benefits is because no one asked for them.
Interesting.
And So I know April's been asked several times in some panel discussions that we've been in, what should people do when they want to have these benefits? And the first word out of her mouth is ask.
Ask. You have to ask. You have to ask for it. Yeah. They don't know what they don't know. We assume that they know, but if no one's speaking up, then I don't see the importance, right? So we have to speak up and advocate for ourselves. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's also, so interesting because then we can also ask the question, why might someone not speak up? Right. And so that in terms of, there's the fear of the negative consequences, or it's going to be a reflection on my ability to perform or to grow or to lead. Right. And so I think that's also where just kind of organizational wide education, integrating this type of education about menopause, about mental health, about mental well-being into kind of, the global wellness programs, into the employee experience. When you talk about things like growth and development, just really kind of integrating it in, right? Across the employee population, not just for a segment, can at a minimum just kind of help with a shared foundational knowledge or shared language, maybe if things aren't forgotten, right, to get it to, and also for other people to advocate for, these not just people who are experiencing menopause or who will experience menopause, but for others too as well, kind of holistically across corporate wellness initiatives.
Yeah. Yeah, that fear of retaliation and fear of someone looking at me like I'm not capable any longer because is real. And we have to start advocating for ourselves. Organizations have to start talking about it so that it is a part of a common language, and have allies, right?
Yes.
In our corner as well that can help speak for us. And with us, not for us. Actually, I'm going to retract that. If I could delete that from this podcast.
That's important, though, being aware of our language and learning out loud. Here we go.
I know, right? I just want to take that back because nobody needs to speak for me, but with me, right? Together, arm in arm, I think is important. Yeah.
And when you have other people in the workforce with you, you feel more psychologically safe, which is something you pointed out, Carolyn, which I think is really important. Feeling safe enough to have those conversations is a huge part of it. And I know it's not always an easy conversation, but it's worth having to help you so that you can flourish while you're in this stage.
Absolutely. So many parallels with just kind of the mental health movement, and bringing it is that that leadership is talking about their own experiences with mental health and just that normalization, destigmatization, and bringing that into the conversation of the life experience of many employee experience.
Yeah, I think it is important. Senior leadership, and listen. We're at an age, I say I'll fold you in too, Carolyn. I don't know how old you are, but I know how old Kim is.
You're the oldest one in the room, April, so go ahead.
Darn it. By a couple days here, I just turned, right? But I think, we get to this age and we get to a point in our careers too, where we are brave enough to talk about it. And it is okay to talk about it because, we kind of have this, I don't give a what anymore attitude, and we know that nothing's going to happen, right? You have this historical work experience where you do feel safer in speaking up. So we really need for those that have gone before us that are older and wiser to speak up and share their stories. I think storytelling is really, really important. Yeah,
absolutely. I know for me, it is in my future and fast approaching, right? But just having these types of conversations is incredibly informative and empowering to me, right? To look ahead and to just to have the conversation as a reality and as something that is not an issue. It's something that is inevitable. And then the key is, and if I also then feel supported, right, in that, beyond the ways that I can advocate for myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
100%.
using those positions of kind of tenure and career and leadership as a part of just being a leader is also sharing that human experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Being a person is hard, as I say to my kids all the time.
Person is hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is awareness is key first, educating awareness so that we begin to normalize any menopause symptoms, whether that is anxiety, depression, mental health, that it is a part, it could be a part of the journey for someone. So understanding that, and then really becoming in tune with ourselves, knowing ourselves, what do I need, advocating for that, having those conversations in the workplace and utilizing benefits that you have within the workplace, and support groups are really, really important.
No,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we haven't asked you that you wish that our audience knew or knows, or you want to share with them?
I think that, one thing that's just really striking is, yes, it's about, and this goes to supporting women with menopause, who are experiencing menopause, people who are having mental health struggles, right? Is that it is the right thing to do to support them, right? With the right benefits and resources and kind of supportive culture and environment. But it's also just an incredibly important kind of strategic play, right?
Yeah.
I mean, to help people show up as their best at work and continue to work, right? And so I think that is and for women, especially like women, to continue to thrive and grow and be at work. And so I think that is one thing that's standing up for me. And I also think, this is very raw, but just the intersection of, menopause and mental health and well-being, right? And really at the individual level, as mental health has kind of become more normalized, more destigmatized, with menopause kind of thankfully, and women's health just getting more of a spotlight. Just how can those two things be a part of the same conversation? Right. And so that's a really exciting opportunity, I think, for everybody, not just women, for all people who are in the workforce and for employers as well.
So great.
Agreed.
How can people find you if they want to get more information about the work that you do?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. I think the best place, and you'll find all the links and everything, is just to connect with me on LinkedIn. So find me on LinkedIn, Carolyn Thayer Azoff, THAYER-AZOFF. There's not many times that hyphenating becomes long-winded, but that's one. And just mention that I'd love to hear how you found me and that you heard this conversation on the podcast. And I'd love to hear what stood out to you. So that'd be a great place. And then there's links and everything else from there.
Perfect. And we'll put that in the show notes too, so that folks can find you as well. So look in the show notes. Are you ready to have some fun, Carolyn? We're going to do a rapid fire and get to know you a little bit better.
Great.
So I'm going to dive right in and just ask what your favorite season is.
Oh, I love fall. I love the color. I guess it's rapid fire. You probably don't want commentary.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah,
I love the crisp air. The leaves are changing colors. I really love fall.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because my next question is, what's your favorite fall drink?
Oh my gosh. I think my favorite drink all year long is coffee.
Yeah, I'm right
and
there
I'm just
with you.
drip coffee with oat milk.
Right on.
Simple Simon.
Yep,
Yes,
me too.
I know. Me too. None of that pumpkin stuff.
I mean, I feel like I'm obligated to have one pumpkin spice latte every year, but I would, yeah, I then tend to want to stick just with my coffee.
All right.
No, I kind of feel disappointed. Like, why did I do that? Yeah.
I know. So
Just be
sweet.
you, Carolyn.
Yeah.
Okay. This one is a this or that.
Okay.
Would you prefer skiing or ski lodge?
Skiing.
Ah, good for you.
Hey, I know. Like, you go, girl. Yeah.
I'm like, bye,
I mean,
everybody.
I
I'm
do
gonna
look
read my book.
forward to the post-skiing festivities as well.
Yeah. Both.
Yeah.
But skiing first.
Skiing
Okay.
first, yes.
And our final and favorite question, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received or given?
I think it's a mantra that I start most days with every day is, what's the highest and best use of my time? There will always be, and it was given to me by somebody that I worked with, and it was as I was actually entering the workforce now as a new mom. I now have two little ones, but there will always be more to do, and just really focusing, whether that be at work or in my personal life, just what is the highest and best use of my time, and anchoring on that.
It's a good
I love that. Prioritize.
Things that you think are important, but they're probably not.
Probably not. Prioritize every day.
There things will always drop, right? Just hopefully they're not the most important ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that one. Well, Carolyn, it has been a joy having you on the show. Thanks so much for coming and talking about mental health and menopause and for what you do and helping so many people. We really appreciate it.
I'm really grateful that you both had me. And I think that I look forward to more conversations in the future.
I love it.
We do too. We do too.
Yeah. Okay.
But until we meet again, everyone that's listening, go find joy in the journey. Take care.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Medovia Menopause Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for future episodes, leave a review, and share this episode with a friend. There are more than 50 million women in the U.S. who are navigating the menopause transition. The situation is compounded by the presence of stigma, shame, and secrecy surrounding menopause, posing significant challenges and disruptions in women's personal and professional spheres. Medovia is out to change the narrative. Learn more at medovia.com. That's MIDOVIA.com.